What is going on with Crash Bandicoot on the Run? Today, I will be talking about one of the most iconic mobile games that managed to win and capture the hearts of Crash Bandicoot fans. And in case you have played it before, you probably remember that there was an official announcement in 2021 from the developers that they were switching focus to improve other features rather than the creation of new seasons. The announcement came as a piece of good news considering that the comments from the fans were saying that improvements were very much needed, but nobody expected the game to be without any news or updates for so long. The question all of us are asking now is, are the developers going to come up with something new when it comes to Crash on the Run? Stick with me and let's analyze this matter through the lenses of what happened in the meantime. So probably by now we're all feeling pretty worn out and over it when it comes to Crash Bandicoot and Wumpa League, since we're simply dying to hear something official. Luckily, it seems that something is finally happening for Crash Bandicoot on December's Game Awards, so not all hope is lost. However, you may recall that Crash on the Run took a break in October 2021 and hasn't returned since. Everyone believed that the game was over for the most part because of this. Now, to be fair, it was a pretty decent game aside from a few setbacks that received a ton of great fan reactions after its March 2021 release. The game was entertaining and new seasons were released frequently, but after a while it grows stale. Players' enthusiasm began to wither away about 2 to 3 seasons since they stopped adding new content. The majority of the features were promised to be launched soon but never did. The fans therefore received an announcement from the devs on Twitter in October of last year, essentially stating that they wanted to enhance the gameplay and add new components, but in order to do so, they were going to pause seasons and concentrate on the newer elements instead. Since then, the mystery surrounding Crash's return in 2022 has gone unsolved, leaving everyone in the same position as they were more than a year ago when the season and updates ended. Now, before the seasons were suspended, the sole major change was a brand new user interface which essentially eliminated some of the game's originality. They removed the main island, which was the main location for all of those coming soon features. Perhaps they did this to conceal them, but again, they missed all of the deadlines for them, leaving none of us with a clear answer. The worst part is that there have been no formal declarations from the developers regarding whether or not anything will actually return. They haven't made any comments about it on Twitter, and it appears that they haven't added any new content to Discord either. There are a few theories about why Crash on the Run was stopped, however, and one of the most common ones mentioned was that Crash on the Run was meant to be put on hold and then returned later, while Wumpa League was scheduled to begin around the same time. According to some, seasons were postponed since Wumpa League was delayed and they would resume when Wumpa League is finally released. However, neither of those explanations makes much sense because the publisher would want the game to generate money whether or not the alternative was available. It is quite obvious that just because your other game was delayed and you want to release them both at once, it is not required to pause the content that is being released for the mobile game. Simply said, it functions in a rather backwards manner. However, the question that remains after all of the foregoing is, what will Crash Bandicoot on the Run futures hold? It has been quite a while since the official social media accounts have tweeted anything regarding about the game's return or if there's any chance that it may be coming back again later this year. It is unfortunate because Crash on the Run could have been really cool, but I think we can all agree that it's been so long since there's been any communication that you would think from either the official Crash Twitter page or at least in the Discord, where I assume there is at least a developer that would try to reassure people by saying, no, we are still working on it. But of course, as we all know, nobody from the developer side has mentioned anything about Crash on the Run even till now. Although maybe they made the correct decision to pause the seasons, put things on wait and rework them, the so-called comeback doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, despite the fact that it was supposed to include some really excellent components. Perhaps this game wasn't earning enough money was a major factor in the seasons of this game being halted. They shouted from the rooftops about how much money they were generating each year when Candy Crush was created. Crash on the Run's revenue figures were not made available to to us, therefore it is pretty reasonable to assume that they weren't very high. I personally think that this is probably the number one main reason why the game was stopped in the first place. Because think about it, the microtransactions of the game was honestly pretty pay to win, just like your average mobile game. So even though the gameplay and the progression system were solid overall, I think players, including myself, were pretty fed up to find out that you are time-locked behind the later progressions pretty heavily, I must say, unless you spend real-life money to speed some of the process up for you. People were calling this a cash cow mobile game, a money-generating mobile game for developers, whatever you wanna call it. So maybe the way the microtransactions that were played out actually backfired for them and did more harm than good. Again, this is just my analysis and my personal thoughts on it. But in order to not look at the situation from a completely negative side, we will mention the theory that provides the basis for a positive outcome. So if you haven't heard of the book 48 Laws of Power, one of the chapters might review the strategy that the creators of the game are currently implementing. Namely, law number 16 of this world bestsellers say that we should use absence to increase the respect and interest of others. In practice, this would mean that the game will be made not available to players for a long period of time, which will lead to an increase in desire and interest regarding its uncertain future. This argument could turn out to be a good business move, given that a lot of people are debating what will happen to the game regardless of how disappointed they are with the overall situation. Although unlikely, and I mean really unlikely, this scenario might lead to a complete explosion in terms of the number of players and overall hype that would be created around Crash on the Run. If they really did come up with such a plan, the creators of the game deserve a lot of credit marketing wise, which leaves the open question of what surprises they will give us regarding about Crash on the Run if it ever does return, of course. But now that the situation has been quote-unquote analyzed, all that is left for us to do is sit back, wait and see what the developers of the game will do next. What is your opinion on the matter? Are they really great marketing masterminds, or is this just another sad end to a game that is loved by many? Like I said, December 2022 might be the biggest day we are waiting for in terms of Crash Bandicoot. So regardless of what happens next for Crash on the Run, it is safe to assure that this is not the end of Crash Bandicoot, and rather things might just go better than ever before.